Hey guys, I wanted to take a moment to talk to you about file organization when you're building a website. I've got a couple notes up here in the corner to remind myself of what I need to make sure I mention. But anytime you build a website, whether you do it through the old-fashioned raw coding through a text editor method, or you use a sophisticated program like Dreamweaver, this concept is going to apply in both cases. And one of the first things that you do, one of the first things you create when you make a website should be a folder. It's not a very exciting thing to do, but it is one of the first things you really want to do. And of course, when you create a folder, you have to name it. So let's just call it folder, I'm just going to call it website _1, because maybe you're going to make more than one website. So you can call the next one website _2, or give it a more interesting name than that if you want. So that is an important folder because you're going to save everything that you put on your website in that folder. So let's create a few things for a website. Let's create a sort of a home page for your website. We'll title it index.html, and on that home page you'll have text, and you may have images and things like that. Because you might have some images that you want to put on your website, maybe you decide in the beginning to get a little organized. So you want to have a subfolder maybe called images or something like that. But whatever you decide, whatever order you think your website needs to have, think that through in the very beginning. And then once you've started creating it, you've started building your page and putting images and other resources and things in there, don't mess with how you organize this folder. That if you have a better way to do it, if you learn some things from how you organize this website's sort of internal contents, then apply that to website _2. Don't worry about it here. Because what ends up happening is if you decide to start moving stuff around maybe 10 hours into your project, into your website building, then a lot of things will get messed up. Because you will have coded that maybe you wanted, let's say you have a picture of a cat called cat.jpg, and maybe originally it was just floating out on the main top level of your folder. But then later you created an image file. Well, if you coded this and you told the web browser to look on the same level that index.html is at for this cat.jpg, then later you move cat.jpg into a folder because you get this sort of organizational bee in your bonnet, that's a problem. So you do need to organize from the beginning, or don't organize at all. Just dump everything into your website folder. There's nothing wrong with that. You can have 25 files just sort of floating randomly, unorganized together in this website folder, and that's totally fine to do that. Just as you become, as you may have more web projects that get more complex, you'll learn that maybe it helps to have folders of various items. Maybe you have another folder eventually that's got your, there's different names for this, but we'll just call it writing or content. Maybe you have various pieces of content, like written content that you need to put on your website. Maybe that's where you store those source files. Give it a name that makes sense to you. I'll put a little underscore there so we're clear that there's no space there. Okay, so you've got these various items. I'll put one more image file in here, dog.gif. And let's get one more page on this website. Let's call it contact.html. That's maybe where you have your contact information. So when you're done with your website, you've got a couple web pages inside of your site. Maybe they link to each other, they're related to each other. Maybe you have the cat image on your index page, maybe the dog GIF is on your contact page. When you're ready to transport it, either you're going to upload it to a server to actually publish this thing. It's very important at that point that it was in a folder. Certainly when you submit your website to me through CourseDen, you have to zip this thing. That's my little zipper. I know it doesn't look so great, but by putting all of these into this one website folder and zipping it, I'm then able to, go to CourseDen, download the zip folder, unzip it, and open it, and all of the relationships that you established inside of your folder, however it's organized, I will be able to open up your index page and hopefully things will display because everything was held together inside of this folder that you zipped. What people frequently do in the beginning, partly because maybe this point isn't made clear, let's just remove this website folder. This is what I see sometimes. Let's see. Yeah. Okay. They'll create the index.html page. Maybe they save that to their desktop. Then they'll have it on their desktop. So this is, you know, this is the desktop. Well, you can hear me saying this. This is your desktop. Then they also have their cat JPEG on the desktop, the dog GIF on the desktop, and maybe they've created a contact page and that's saved on their desktop. So these items are all saved separately on somebody's desktop at their house, many miles from where I am, where I would like to be able to access it. And then they do one of two things. They either upload all of these files individually into Coursden. That does me no good, because when I open this page, it's lost the relationships. It can't find these things because it's looking on that desktop in that house many, many miles away from me. That's where it's been told to look. So that's one problem. But another thing they might do is after they've created all these files separately and saved them separately on the desktop, and they think their web page is done because it works on their computer, then they're like, oh, she told us to create a folder, and then they stuff this stuff into that folder. Maybe they give it a name, like website _1, and then they throw these files in there, and then they zip it, and they submit it to Coursden, but that doesn't work. Saving all that in the folder after the fact does not work, for the most part, unless you really knew what you were doing. If you really knew what you were doing and you knew that was your plan, you could have coded it accordingly, but most of you will not have done that. And so shoving all that in there, the relationships will not be, they will not be appropriate, they will not work to display things. So, again, save that folder from the get-go, then save everything that you want on your web page inside of that folder. With the exception that sometimes you're going to actually link, sometimes on your web pages you'll have links to things like images that are on outside web pages, and those have sort of static URLs that don't change. So you can actually use, you know, on your index page, this is just, you could have a link to an outside image, for example, and that might not have to be in your image file that's in your folder. So that's sort of an exception. That kind of thing can be an exception. But otherwise, you need to put it all in that one folder. So I hope this makes sense. Let me know if it doesn't by posing a question through the Coursden email. All right. Thank you so much.